Welcome along. Today, in our Domain-Driven Design Essentials series, we're diving into something really fundamental, the ubiquitous language.
That's right.
Basically, for any software project that's tackling a specific business area, you absolutely need a common language. It's the glue.
It really is. It connects the business experts, the ones who, live and breathe the domain,
Mhm.
with the technical team actually building the thing.
And we're going to explore why this shared language is so vital and, maybe more importantly, how you actually build it and use it effectively day to day.
Because without it,
Yeah.
well, things can go wrong pretty fast, can't they? Misunderstandings, different interpretations.
Oh, definitely. Projects get delayed, features don't work as expected, all because people weren't quite speaking the same language about the core business ideas. It sounds simple, but it's a huge source of friction.
You see it all the time. And this ubiquitous language we're talking about,
Yeah.
it's not just jargon. It really becomes the backbone of the software model itself.
Right. It has to be used everywhere, in meetings, in documents.
And crucially, in the code itself. That's key.
So let's imagine that typical scenario where this isn't happening. What does that look like?
Well, you often find the domain experts, the business folks, using their own specific terms, their own shorthand maybe.
And the tech team,
They might be using more technical terms, maybe related to the database structure or the UI elements, to describe what they think are the same concepts.
like two different dialects almost.
Exactly. And when the language you use in hallway conversations or planning meetings is different from the names you give things in the code, well, that's a recipe for trouble.
You lose something in translation.
You really do. Subtle but important business rules or insights can get diluted or just plain missed. Sometimes even the same person might describe something slightly differently when they're speaking versus when they're writing documentation.
Which just adds to the potential confusion, right?
It does. It muddies the waters.
Okay, so this sounds like a problem we definitely need to solve. How does this ubiquitous language concept help us fix it?
It's fundamentally about building that bridge. The ubiquitous language is the shared, agreed-upon terminology that everyone uses.
Everyone.
Yep, software engineers, product owners, the domain experts, UX UI designers. The whole team needs to adopt it.
And it comes directly from the business domain.
Absolutely. It's built upon the domain model,
Hmm.
that conceptual map of how the business works. It's not invented by the tech team in isolation.
That's important, so the domain experts have to feel comfortable with it.
They have to. It should feel natural to them when they're talking about their own area of expertise. It should reflect their understanding, their mental model.
So it's not just a list of words, it's embodying the way the experts think about the business.
Precisely. It captures the domain itself and how the key people understand that domain.
Okay, so how does this actually function day to day? You mentioned the domain model is the foundation.
Right. Think of the domain model not just as diagrams, but as the source of truth for the core concepts in their relationships. The language springs directly from that,
And then the team has to actively use it.
actively and consistently, in all communication, meetings, emails, chats, documentation.
And the code itself,
Hmm.
naming classes, methods, variables.
Exactly. That consistency is paramount. If your code uses different terms in your requirements document, you've broken the connection.
And this language doesn't just appear fully formed, does it?
No, not at all. It sort of emerges,
Mhm.
through collaboration, through talking, sketching things out, writing things down.
So it's a process of discovery and refinement.
Yes, exactly. The team builds shared knowledge and, through that process, refines the model and the language together. Speech, writing, diagrams, they all play a part.
Consistency across all those forms sounds like the absolute key.
It really is. That's what makes it ubiquitous.
So let's talk benefits. Why go to this effort? What's the payoff?
Well, one big one is clarity. Imagine someone new joining the team, maybe even someone not super technical.
Mm.
If the ubiquitous language is used well in the code, they should be able to read parts of the code and actually understand the business process it represents, because the code is literally speaking the language of the business.
That's powerful. Code becomes more self-documenting in a way.
In a very meaningful way, yes.
Yeah.
It bridges that gap between the business intent and the technical implementation. Think about your own experiences. How often does confusion arise just from people calling the same thing by different names?
All the time. And I guess software built this way, deeply rooted in the domain language, is probably easier to change later, too.
Much easier, because the code reflects the business reality. When the business reality changes, it's clearer where and how the code needs to adapt.
Hmm.
The model provides a stable foundation.
Makes sense. And it helps eliminate ambiguity, too.
Definitely. By consciously choosing specific terms and using them consistently, you weed out vague words or situations where one term means multiple things, fewer hidden assumptions.
Let's dig into some examples where things go wrong. You often see technical descriptions that mean nothing to a business person.
Oh, absolutely. Like, a campaign can only be published if it has at least one associated record in the active placements table.
Right. An engineer knows what that means technically.
But the domain expert is left wondering, okay, but why? What's the actual business rule here? It doesn't explain the rationale.
Or something like sales commissions are based on correlated records from the transactions and approved sales tables.
Again, pure tech speak, it hides the business logic. And if the engineers only understand that technical view, well, they can't really model the domain effectively, can they?
They're missing the business context, the why.
Exactly. Their ability to make good design decisions that actually align with the business is limited.
What about those tricky situations where one word means different things in different departments, like the classic example of lead?
Yes. Lead can mean one thing to marketing, maybe just a potential contact and something quite different to sales. Perhaps a qualified prospect ready for a call.
Or like you mentioned earlier, report. Sales wants a daily summary, finance wants a quarterly P&L. Same word, very different things.
That's a really common challenge. And the seemingly easy fix is just to stick a prefix on it, right? Marketing lead, sales lead.
Yeah, sales report, finance report.
But while that might work technically in the code sometimes, it's often not ideal. It adds a kind of cognitive load.
How so?
Well, people constantly have to remember which flavor of lead or report they're dealing with. And maybe more importantly, it often doesn't match how people actually talk.
Ah, right. The sales team probably just says lead in their meetings, not always sales lead.
Exactly. So forcing these prefixes everywhere can feel unnatural and actually hinder communication rather than helping it.
So simply prefixing isn't always the best answer. It sounds like the underlying model is where you need to properly resolve these differences.
That's the key. The domain model is where you explicitly define these different concepts, even if they share a similar name in casual conversation. You make the distinction clear within the model's context.
And we should remember, a model isn't supposed to be a perfect mirror of reality, is it?
No, definitely not. A good domain model is an abstraction. It only includes the details that are necessary for its specific purpose, for solving the problem at hand.
It's about usefulness.
Precisely. You know that famous quote, all models are wrong, but some are useful. That really applies here. Focus on creating a model that's useful for building the right software.
That's a great perspective. Are there any specific tools or practices that help teams nail down and stick to this ubiquitous language?
Yeah, there are a few things. Using test suites written in a business-readable format, like using Gherkin syntax, for example.
Like given, when, then.
Exactly. Writing tests that way forces you to express the system's behavior using the agreed-upon business terms. It reinforces the language.
So the tests become living documentation of the language and the rules.
They do. And interestingly, there are even static analysis tools you can run on your code.
Oh yeah, what do they do?
They can actually check if the terms you're using in your code, your class names, method names, consistently match a predefined glossary of your ubiquitous language terms.
Wow, like a spell checker for your domain language.
Sort of, yeah. It can help flag inconsistencies.
Yeah.
But, these tools are just support.
They don't replace the actual human part?
Not at all. The real magic happens in the day-to-day interactions, the conversations, the collaborative modeling sessions. The tools can help enforce it, but the team has to live it.
Okay, now we've talked a lot about a ubiquitous language, but larger systems often have different parts, right? How does that work?
That's a really important point, and it leads us to the idea of bounded context.
Bounded context. Right.
Essentially, a ubiquitous language usually lives within a specific boundary, a bounded context. Inside that boundary, the model and the language are strictly consistent and have a specific meaning.
So a big company might have, say, a sales context with its own ubiquitous language and a separate support context with its own language.
Exactly. The term customer might mean slightly different things or have different associated data in the sales context compared to the support context. Each context has a language tailored to its specific needs and model.
That makes sense. It allows different parts of the business to have precisely defined languages without stepping on each other's toes.
Precisely. It avoids trying to force one single perfect language onto a complex reality where different perspectives are needed.
And finally, this isn't something you just set up once and forget, is it?
Oh, absolutely not.
Hmm.
It requires constant attention, constant engagement, especially making sure that people writing the code are deeply involved in the conversation about the model, using the language.
A dynamic exchange.
Yes. If the software design starts drifting away from the domain model expressed in that shared language, then the model loses its value. And frankly, you start to question if the software is even doing the right thing anymore.
So wrapping this up, if you had to summarize the core value of really focusing on a ubiquitous language, what would it be?
I'd say it's about fundamentally improving communication and building a truly shared understanding. It connects the business need directly to the software solution in a way that isolated technical jargon just can't.
It leads to better software because everyone's aligned on what they're actually building and why.
Exactly. It's not just about words. It's about building that shared mental model of the business domain.
A shared mental model. I like that.
Thanks, goal.
So, a final thought for everyone listening. Take a moment to think about your current projects. How consistent is the language used across the team, the documentation, and the code?
Yeah. Are there areas where different terms are used for the same concept or where technical terms obscure the business meaning?
And what small steps could you maybe take to start building or strengthening that common ubiquitous language? Could some past miscommunications have been avoided?
It's definitely worth reflecting on. Those little misunderstandings often point to a deeper linguistic disconnect.
Great points. Hopefully, this discussion has highlighted just how vital this concept is. Thanks for joining us for this part of Domain Driven Design Essentials.